Hi, I'm Gary Bemidge, and this is another of my tips for travelers. In this episode, we're taking a look at the cruise line Voyages to Antiquity, and I'm going to explore 7 things that you need to know before considering cruising with this cruise line, including a number of really important watch-outs. But first of all, remember, please subscribe to the channel because that way, every single week you'll be reminded that there's another video packed full of travel tips, advice, and inspiration. Voyages to Antiquity is a small, independently owned cruise line that focuses on educating and enriching passengers about the ports that they go to. So at the time of recording, it is a one-ship cruise line. They have the Aegean Odyssey, and the Aegean Odyssey was originally built as a ferry. It was converted in the late 1980s to a passenger ship and has gone through many changes since then, and the ship is constantly refreshed and updated. All the itineraries tend to focus on ports that either have a historical, a cultural, or an archaeological importance or significance to them. They really aim to make sure that passengers know a lot about the places they're calling on before and when they're calling on them. The passengers on the cruise line are extremely loyal, and you'll find that you'll talk to people who've been on multiple trips, often booking exactly the same cabin. What type of passengers are they? Well, first of all, they're English speaking because the whole cruise is operated very much in English. They tend to be from the US, Canada, Australia, and the UK. Passengers also tend to be a little bit older, so they tend to be in their 50s, 60s, 70s and above. They tend to be quite well educated because they're very interested in the history, the culture and the stories of the places that they're going to. There'll also often be a lot of groups on board, which again are on kind of cultural or educational type tours. If you're looking for a cruise which is very unlikely to have children on, Voyages to Antiquity is a good option. Voyages to Antiquity is also a great option if you're a solo traveler. They have a lot of solo cabins at all different grades, and they'll also often have promotions where there are no supplements for occupying the standard cabins. You'll also find that passengers are relatively fit and able because they're visiting archaeological sites or old historical sites. There's a lot of walking involved, often over uneven surfaces and things like steps. So people tend to be quite fit. Although the passengers tend to be a little bit older, they are quite fit and active. Voyages to Antiquity follow what is very similar to a European river cruise approach to fares. So the fares are largely all-inclusive. So when you look at the fares for a trip, bear in mind it's likely to include your airfare, transfers, often pre and post cruise activities and stays. So the fares tend to be a package including all of those things. So the following is included within your fare once you're on board. Your accommodation, obviously food, which include breakfast, lunch, afternoon tea, dinner. There's also late night snacks, and there is a limited room service also available. Drinks at dinner time are included, so wine and beers are included, but all other drinks outside of that time are extras. Gratuities are included, although you will pay a gratuity if you're buying drinks of 12.5%. And another very, very important inclusion is excursions. Pretty much every single port will have at least one excursion, and often you'll find up to a choice of 2 or 3 excursions. So what's not included? Well, drinks outside of meal times are not included. Wi-Fi is not included. Laundry is not included, and there's no guest laundromat on board. And then, of course, discretionary spend like spend in the shop or in the spa. What's really important is after your first cruise, you do become a member of the Odyssey Club, and you'll find there's a lot of extras included in that, some Wi-Fi, some laundry. So take a look at also what the benefits are after the first cruise. So if you're looking at their fares, whilst on the surface they sometimes may seem a little bit high, bear in mind there are a lot of things included. Taking a look at the brochure, I would say on average you can expect to pay from around about £175, about $200 a day, up to about £400, $500 per day. Now the fourth thing I think you need to know is around the dress code. There is no set dress code on board, and it tends to be relatively casual. In the evenings, you'll find that people do tend to get dressed up a little bit to go to the Marco Polo dining room. So you'll often find gentlemen will have jackets on, ladies will have smart dresses on. Again, you'll find on things like the Captain's Welcome Party, most people want to put on a jacket or smart dresses. So you don't have to worry about bringing lots of formal wear. And again, it's much more focused on making sure you bring the right clothes for the excursions and the sightseeing. Now, following on from that, the fifth thing I think you need to know is what is the onboard experience like? It's casual, it's civilized, and it's attentive. It's a very casual approach. So as I mentioned, there's no formal nights, there's no gala nights, the dress code is casual. It's open-seated dining, not very stuffy and not very formal. It's very civilized. You'll find there are lots of talks. There's lots of educational events and activities. You'll find classical music being played. You'll find quizzes. You'll often find people just sitting around on the decks or in the public rooms reading on things like sea days. So it's a relatively civilized and quite a calm approach. In terms of service, it's pretty attentive. The ship only holds around about 350 passengers at any one time. So the crew can get to know you quite easily. So little touches. So for example, even at the informal dining restaurant, the Terrace Cafe, the staff there will always insist on taking your tray to the table. So it's casual, it's civilized, but attentive. The Aegean Odyssey is a relatively small ship, so facilities are relatively limited. There are two dining venues. You have the Marco Polo restaurant, which is the formal restaurant. You have the Terrace Cafe, which has both an indoor and an outdoor area. That is a buffet service restaurant. In terms of bars and lounges, the main one is the Charleston Bar, which is a very popular hub. You then have the Ambassador Lounge. This is a very large space. It can hold everybody on board at one time. It's where you'll have things like the captain's reception. It's where all the talks are held. It's where the port briefings are held. Higher up on the ship is the Observation Lounge. You also have the Lido Bar, which is very popular, particularly when sailing in warm climates. Got the pool deck. You have the Athena Spa, which has a very small fitness center. There's also a small hairdressing salon. There's a library which has got lots of books, puzzles, and there's a shop. Voyages to Antiquity doesn't have big production shows, so entertainment again is relatively low key. So you're going to have things like quizzes, you might have some dance classes, there might be vegetable and fruit sculpting. There's a classical trio, normally also a musical duo on board, and then the cruise director will often hold cabaret, doing themed evenings, for example, around the 60s. But the main focus is enrichment, and they will normally be on board 3 lecturers. They're all eminent and experts, some still lecturing in various universities around the world. So there will often be 2 to 3 talks a day. They're extremely well attended. I reckon that 95% of the people on board will go and watch. The 6th thing you need to know is about excursions. As I mentioned, excursions are included within the fare. There are some optional excursions offered, usually if the ship is staying overnight in a port, where you do have to pay for those. Most ports will have 1 excursion, but in many places there will be 3. So for example, on the cruise that I'm recording this on, which went to Iceland, in most of the ports of call, there were 3 excursions that you could choose from. Some were part day, some were all day. And they have a local guide. Normally someone from the ship is also with you, and they use the Quiet Vox system. So very similar to European river cruises, where you can hear the guide up to 50 feet or more away. The excursions are designed for all fitness levels, and each of the excursions will have ratings in terms of how much walking there is, how much uneven territory there is, how many steps, and whether it involves getting in and out of boats. A lot of the places they go do require a certain degree of fitness, although there will often be a tour included which has more driving or coach and less walking. Expect to be walking and much more active than perhaps some of the excursions on other cruise lines. When you embark on your cruise card, there will be a little colored sticker and a group number. That's the group that you will do all of your excursion with. The tours will always build on and focus on the education and enrichment side. So you'll go to archaeological sites, but perhaps some World Heritage sites, perhaps places of natural beauty, various cultural immersion sites or museums. But it's really designed to help you understand and learn about the port and destination you're visiting. So what are the watch-outs with Voyage to Antiquity? As I've mentioned, this is a cruise line that's designed for people who want to go on vacation and they want to learn and enrich themselves. They want to really delve into the history and the culture and the significance of the places that they're visiting. So it is a very different way of seeing destinations, and I can understand why that won't appeal to everybody. Many people are very loyal to it because they can go to the Mediterranean, they can go to the Caribbean, they go to South Africa, wherever they go to, they're going to see it in a different way as perhaps on other cruise lines, which are going to be much more focused around the lighter side of destinations and much more focused around the beaches or the entertainment or those kind of activities. This is very much for people who want to get deep into the stories, the history, the architecture, and the culture of the places they visit. The Aegean Odyssey is a relatively old ship. It's very well maintained. It's a very classic style. So for example, less than 25% of the cabins have balconies. Again, that won't appeal to everybody. So Voyages to Antiquity is a different kind of cruise line. It's small, it's independent, and at the time of recording, it certainly has one very distinctive ship. So if you're looking for an enrichment experience, you want to go and visit ports that are perhaps a little bit more off the beaten track, then I would definitely consider Voyage to Antiquity. Hopefully you found this overview of Voyages to Antiquity interesting and helpful. And if you did, I'd love it if you watched many more of my Tips for Travelers videos, because you'll get more travel inspiration, advice, and tips to help you make even more of your very precious travel time and money.